Hi everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to November's UK and Ireland Partner Monthly Cloud Update. Can everyone hear me all right and see the screen? I'll take that as a yes. I don't see anything in the chat. Okay, so this month, if I can get the slides to work, I wanted to quickly mention at the start that December's webinar has basically been cancelled because I don't think anyone's particularly bothered about going through this sort of thing right in the middle of Christmas. So that should have been deleted from Zoom's webinar list. So if you do get a reminder or whatever popping up at the end of next month, please ignore it because there's going to be nobody on that call, including me. So I just wanted to mention that before we start. Okay, so as usual, today's agenda, what's new this month? So the usual run through, what's new in terms of offerings in the marketplace, changes to templates, new features, etc., etc. And then sort of the main piece of this month's meeting, which is a quick look demo at Dome 9. This isn't going to be exhaustive by any stretch because we've probably only got about 10 minutes or so to do this. But hopefully it'll give you some idea of how Dome 9 looks and feels, the sorts of things that it can do, maybe potential use cases for customers, etc. And just a little bit of general sort of light discussion. Obviously, we can spend time having a much deeper dive, but really that's probably better off being done in association with your account managers and SEs. And then we could actually dedicate, an hour or so to having a proper deep dive into these features and functions within Dome 9. Then a quick mention of the Microsoft Ignite Tour, which again is another fairly major event that you're going to see us at early in the new year. So we'll quickly cover that, and then if there's any time left over in the half hour, obviously we'll open that to Q&A. But any other questions or comments that you think of kind of as we run through things, feel free to paste them in the chat window, and if I get a chance to get to them, I will do. Okay, so what's new this month? Plenty going on actually. So I think the first big one really is to mention that R8020 management is now available in both AWS and Azure from the marketplace. And because of that, the ARM templates and the CloudFormation templates have been updated to reflect this. So when you go in and kind of pick versions and things like that, you will see R8020. This is obviously a kind of a big step forward for us, really. The gateways will follow soon. The asterisk is to say that soon is a fairly movable feast. Hopefully weeks rather than months. But I'm led to believe that it's not going to be too far behind. And sometimes some of these delays are actually caused by running through some of the kind of governance processes around the marketplaces, with AWS and Azure themselves. So hopefully not too long, but at the very least, you can spin up an R8020 management instance now in your demo labs, have a look at it, kick the tires, see what you think, and then hopefully all will be well. So in changes in Azure, the latest image this month includes the general availability jumbo hotfix take 154, which was released on the 23rd of October. So it's bringing you, pretty up to date, pretty current with fixes and security patches, etc. If you want much more detail about what fixes are in that, there's an SK there, 116380. You can go away and read that. It's extremely long, so it's probably worth searching. If there's something in particular that you're looking for, obviously there's a search function embedded within that. You can have a quick look through and see if there's something specific. But lots going on, and something that's really not noted on this because there's not that much to tell at this point. But as many of you know, there's AWS reInvent conferences going on this week. And one of the major releases that certainly affects Checkpoint is the Transit Gateway solution, which is kind of an addition to kind of VPC peering and hub and spoke and all that sort of thing. So it's kind of early days to see what that involves, but essentially there's a new target within routing tables in AWS for a transit gateway, and it's a more elegant way of linking VPCs together, not just with VPC peering, but also with VPN connections as well. So kind of more like a hub and spoke type model rather than a bit of a mess at the moment, where you can, you've got VPC peers shooting off in all sorts of different directions, and it can be quite difficult to manage. So we are straight out the gate with integration with that. So CloudGuard integrates with the Transit Gateway. Really just keep an eye out in the next few weeks for some more detail on actually what that involves. But again, it's really good for us that at these major events, when they bring these new features and products out, that Checkpoint are right there and we're integrating from day one. So really positive news. Okay, so now for a very quick look at Dome 9. So as I mentioned previously, and hopefully everyone can see that. Can anyone not see a Dome 9 window? Please type it in the chat, so I'm not talking for no reason. So for those that don't know, Dome 9 is a company that Checkpoint acquired about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's a company that's been around about 5 or 6 years, I think, something like that. Founded by a couple of people, but one of which is a former Checkpoint employee, and he's now obviously back in the Checkpoint family. And the role of Dome 9 is essentially to give you inventory and compliance and security and IAM controls over a multi-cloud environment. So it was really interesting this week that we were at the ESRM event in London, and we had a booth there, and lots of people were coming over asking us about Dome 9. There's lots of interest in it. We had a couple of financial services customers come over as well that were already with Dome 9, and they're very happy with it. And it's important to kind of understand where Dome 9 fits into the bigger picture in terms of CloudGuard IaaS and CloudGuard SaaS. And I think the kind of simplest way to explain it is CloudGuard IaaS is kind of like primarily like a network function, so very similar to kind of the bump in the wire type deployments that you kind of used to on-prem and all the rest of it. And I know a lot of you kind of know CloudGuard IaaS really well. CloudGuard SaaS is the sort of second part of that puzzle, which is a SaaS service around securing things like Office 365 and G Suite and Salesforce and Dropbox and all those sorts of things as well, which gives you things like anti-phishing controls and shadow IT controls and a whole raft of other stuff. Feel free to go and check that out. This is not the stage to do that. And then Dome 9 completes that sort of 360-degree view, if you like, of the cloud environment by allowing you to plug into AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. And it's basically all API driven. So there's no, you can install agents if you really want to. You don't have to. You can be up and running in a few minutes. So literally just some credentials into AWS, Azure, or GCP. And you can see straight away, you get sort of this dashboarded view of kind of what the world looks like. This is the very top page of Dome 9. So this is kind of like a quick glance matrix to see kind of what's going on in the world, how many AWS accounts you've got hooked in, Azure and GCP, as you can see. And you've also got Compliance Network IAM, and there's an S3 option as well at the bottom. What you probably find to start with is Dome 9 kind of built most of its functionality around AWS to start with. There is a lot of functionality around Azure and Google Cloud, but it's not quite at the level yet as AWS is. So, lots of extra features for AWS that you wouldn't necessarily get in Azure and GCP today. But obviously, as part of the roadmap, the intention is to bring all of those up to parity as soon as possible. But the usual kind of RAG status that administrators are familiar with, nothing particularly new about that. But it's one of the use cases that I explained to someone the other day was if you wanted to go away and get this kind of information by hand, if you wanted to roll your own, the level of kind of scripting that you'd have to do, and obviously you have to resource that as well with a specialist, maybe a contractor. This could take you potentially weeks and months to get off the ground really, and literally this is sort of 5 minutes and kind of off you go. So we'll just have a very quick look over the 4 main pillars. So the inventory compliance, network security, and IAM. So again, because it's all a SaaS-driven product, there's nothing for you to install on-prem. There's no infrastructure required. It's all completely just plug and play. Log into the Dome 9 account, hook in all your different cloud accounts, and immediately you get visibility. There's lots of sort of hyperlinked drill. You can drill down into these particular objects and have a good look at them. But again, you can see at a very quick glance the sorts of things that's going on. You can filter lists out. And you can look at things like IAM safety. So there's nothing about this that's that's particularly hard to understand from a very quick glance. And then drilling down into protected assets. So again, sometimes some of these solutions are very sort of tailored around VMs, but as you can see here on the left, we don't just recognize virtual machines, but we also recognize things like Lambda functions and load balancers. There are some standalone agents as well. So Dome9 does have an agent-based option as well to give you sort of more granularity about VM instances, things like file integrity and sort of changes to the registry and those sorts of things as well can be alerted back into Dome9. So that kind of takes things a step further, but it's certainly not required to get going with Dome9 and get up and running very quickly. But again, you sort of see relational database services, load balancers, elastic file system, and obviously the different account types, different regions, different VPCs. And again, it's very easy to sort of filter out details and look at, for example, what's publicly facing, and you can think, well, what's this, drill into this, and you can see straight away the region that it's in. And again, it's just all, you can kind of go down the rabbit hole a little bit by, all these hyperlinks, and you can click into them, and you can kind of go crazy really, but there's some nice functionality around event history as well, which is quite neat. And that's taken just a second to render. But again, it kind of illustrates the fact that the information that we've got within Dome9 is not, we don't kind of maintain a massive database full of information, is what I'm saying. Is a lot of this is API driven. So as you click into something, that spawns an API call out to the management layer of AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, and this is brought out as live. So this is how it is right now at this, 10 seconds ago or whatever. This isn't a snapshot that we took a week ago. This is all very, very fresh information, and that's sort of really important as well. So again, in terms of policy reporting, lots of sort of point and shoot type functionality within this, and as you see, a lot of this is kind of geared around AWS at the moment. That will change. That we will get functionality within Azure and Google Cloud for these as well. But again, a really good kind of very pictorial breakdown of the sorts of things that's going on within there at the moment. You can kind of break into these things as well and have a good look at them. One of the use cases that's really useful for Dome9 is that one of the things I found in the cloud, and I don't know if this is other people's experience as well, but the cloud's great, and you've kind of got all these really cool products and features that you can use and just pay for, by the hour or whatever. But then the difficulty is usually that logging is an issue. So sometimes logging is not enabled by default. And then if you do enable logging, it really just kind of throws a whole load of data into S3 or into Azure storage. And then the onus is kind of on you to make some sense of what that actually means. So you might have to crack out sort of Power BI or Crystal Reports, or put it into Excel even, or something like that, to try and understand what's going on. And one of the really nice things about Dome9 is it extracts things like VPC flow logs, which, if you've been using AWS a lot, you'll know that VPC flow logs are sort of, they're all right, but it's raw data, and some of the times to try and understand what's going on quickly, you need to go back and look at what the headings are and kind of what particular values mean, and timestamps and things like that. And it's a bit of a pain, to be honest. And one of the things that Dome9 does, and hopefully we'll see this shortly, is it renders it into a much nicer view, and it's done literally within the click of a button, within sort of a couple of seconds, really. In terms of compliance and governance, this is a really popular feature, and this is really, I think, probably one of the reasons why it's got very good traction in the financial services industry. So from what I've seen at the moment in the UK, there are a number of financial services that are either doing proof of concepts on Dome9, or already had Dome9 even before Checkpoint acquired them. And that's really because of the power of the compliance and governance functionality within the product. So again, you can see within this, there are a whole bunch of different policy checks. And from the left-hand side here, again, you can kind of filter out by platform, and you can create your own as well. Dome9 ship a bunch of policy templates that you can use. And if we kind of drill into some of these, you can see that S3 bucket security is a really good example. So we can quickly run this. And again, it sort of reiterates the point that, let's try one that's not going to give me an error. Reiterates the point that, you know, kind of if you did this hand rolling it, it would take a long time. But you've seen there in a few seconds, globally, we've looked at AWS, we've looked at S3 buckets, and S3 buckets is a major sort of attack vector for people on the internet. And literally with, you know, a few seconds of an S3 bucket being permissive in any way, you can bet your bottom dollar someone's been in there and had a look at it, or at least to try get into it. So you can see straight away within a few seconds, globally, where are my S3 buckets, which ones are particularly at risk, and is kind of how do I remediate this? And you can see this straight away, the test that we've performed, the description of the test, and really how to fix that, which is really cool. One of the things that I just wanted to quickly highlight was GSL, which is sort of it's the query language that's unique to Dome 9. And you know, typically in the past you would have to sort of write little SQL statements or something like that. And it was kind of a bit of a pain, because if you didn't know SQL, you'd kind of have to learn it, or you'd have to flick back between, you know, documentation pages and try to see how to do things. And again, a lot of it boils down to ease of use and kind of quick clicks and all the rest of it. And within the governance console, you can either type out the GSL yourself, which is intended to be, you know, kind of human readable stuff. But the best part is there's actually a rule builder. So you can jump in here and not know anything about GSL, but if you quickly want to set up a test, so for example, you could say instance should have, I don't know, region like, let's say Ireland, see if it works. But you can see straight away that that's taken a couple of clicks and typing something in. And you can quickly test it at the bottom before you actually implement it, just to see that what you've typed out actually makes sense. But again, there's no reason to go back and learn a new trick. This is all very, very straightforward and very, very easy to use. So you can start building your own policies around not just policies that are specific to the industry that you're in, but also if you've got any particular corporate policies. So for example, customers might not want to place data in Germany because they've got some very specific data rules. Similarly, you might not want people putting things into Chinese regions or anything like that. So again, you can create your own policies around that. Use the rule builder to build that out really quickly test it, make sure that you get the results you expect, and then you can bring it kind of into the operational procedures. And another really handy feature of the compliance engine is that all of these tests that you run, and you'll see there are quite a lot of these because this is a demo account that dozens of people share, so there's a whole lot of junk in here, unfortunately. But one of the really nice parts of the assessment history is that it's really easy for auditors and security information security staff to show that at this given point in time, we were 75% compliant with S3 bucket security. A month from now, when we run this again and we've done some remediation, you know, this could be back up into the high 90s, or it could be, you know, hopefully 100%. But again, it's from an audit perspective, it's a really, really quick way of showing progress to auditors, internal or external or both, you know, to show that you're taking this sort of thing very seriously. So just another quick look at some of these other policies. So the typical ones that ship with the product, so CIS foundations. So if you're looking at a highly secure lockdown sort of infrastructure, there's a policy template around CIS foundations. But there's also some, you know, pretty fairly standard compliance tests, including GDPR, HIPAA, ISO 27001, PCI DSS is in here as well, NIST. So you can kind of see that, you know, already a lot of the typical things that you may be audited on or a customer's audited on is already in here. You know, so you can very, very quickly get up and running. And then again, if there's something in particular that you need for a particular industry vertical, the rule builder is very, very quick and easy to use. So in terms of network security, this is the next sort of major pillar of Dome 9. And what this allows you to do is, one of the common problems within a cloud environment is kind of when you start building complex network security groups and security groups in AWS, sometimes it can be quite tricky to weed out who has access to what and which rule permitted that to happen, or if something's blocking something. So again, what this does is very simply uses API calls to drill straight into cloud environments and can start telling you kind of what's going on within that. And the way that Clarity works is that it gives you what's called a swim lane view. So straight away, you can immediately see kind of what's externally facing, what's considered to be DMZ, and then what's internal with no sort of external access. There's also another category that kind of fits into the middle here, which is partially internal, which is something else you can investigate as well. But these, again, are all sort of clickable links. And you can see, again, we're not just kind of focused on virtual machines, we're also focused on other services as well, such as EFS, and there's some RDS in there as well. But by clicking on these particular objects, you can see how these links are applied and where the traffic's flowing, and you can also kind of see the rules on the right hand side as well. And again, you can kind of go crazy just drilling into all these different things. But again, it's just a way of quickly showing you, how the environment looks and if it's behaving as you expect it to behave, I guess. And as well as security groups as an effective policy view as well. So you'll see that might look slightly different. But again, it still brings you out pretty much in the same place. You can drill into these and look at what these inspectors are telling you. There's also options for things like peered VPCs, VPC flow logs. So let's see if we can just get something out of that. No, they're not enabled on this, but you can drill into particular instances, and as I mentioned previously, rather than having to weed through lines and lines of just kind of statistics and things like that, it's very easily rendered within this particular view, which again just kind of adds that bit of value. So the final thing I just quickly want to mention is the IAM safety part. So again, there's sort of always going to be this problem of, or the typical use case is a company that's doing a cloud project has to do it quickly, doesn't have the skills in-house. It's quite common that they'll bring in contractors for periods of time, and that could be days, weeks, months, years maybe. But then it's kind of, how do you manage effectively giving them only the access they need for that particular piece of work that they're doing for that given amount of time. So one of the things that Dome9 provides is the ability to give time-boxed, elevated privileges to people to perform particular tasks. And I think at the moment this IAM safety is primarily built around AWS, because one of the feature gaps in AWS is that it doesn't have this ability to give temporary elevated permissions. I know you can do it in Azure AD with PIM. I have heard a couple of grumbles about how effective that is, but that's really a separate discussion. But the whole point of this is, contractor comes in, he's here to do, I don't know, set up a load balancer in some instances or something. So you only want to give him access to EC2 and a particular load balancer. He requests a token. You create that role, you assign it to this person, they do whatever they need to do, and then essentially not forget about it. But in terms of housekeeping, let's say you grant that time box for, say, 2 weeks. As soon as that 2 weeks is over, whether he's finished or not, that token elapses and he has no more access. So you're kind of not in this position where you may have accounts with escalated privileges that people could use to kind of attack your cloud estate, if you will. So that's one of the aspects of IAM safety as well that's very popular, again, in terms of financial services industry, but that could apply equally to anybody. Having compromised accounts with elevated permissions is always going to be a real problem. So that's a very, very quick look. I know it was a bit of a car wash. I do apologize, but again, if you're interested in Dome9, and I know a lot of people are, we're setting up a number of meetings with a lot of partners at the moment, where we can spend a lot more time drilling into particular use cases or particular features that you're interested in. So feel free, contact your account manager, contact your SE. We're happy to set that up, and it's very quick to kind of run through this dashboard and even go down to sort of POC level. Again, it's just kind of a 5-minute job. There's 2 different ways you can deploy Dome9, and it's quickly important to mention that. You can have a read-only mode, so literally we use API calls, we log in, we pull out information about what's in these cloud accounts. And then that's really it. We can't make any changes. If that account gets compromised for any particular reason, yeah, you can kind of read into these accounts, but you can't make any changes. And that's pretty popular in terms of PLC, because that can kind of get plugged into the live environment. There's also read-write access. So again, it's kind of it's an AWS level function really at the moment. But what you can do within that is you can. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought now because the dog's got a squeaky toy. We'll come back to that anyway. But yeah, so read-write access. Yeah, so the way that works is that you can lock out a region. So if somebody puts a permissive security group into a particular region or a particular availability zone, you can pick that up and you can scrub that, and you can have it so that only Dome9 can push security group changes into the cloud environment. So that is a really, really quick car wash, as I say. I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, but hopefully that gives you some sense of what it looks like, how it works, what's involved with getting it going. And then obviously, further discussions further down the line is where we would kind of bring in your AMs and SEs. So just to quickly close out, the Microsoft Ignite Tour is coming early next year. And what that involves is that the sessions from Microsoft Ignite, so the sort of high-scoring ones and some of the more popular ones, they're essentially taking a greatest hits, if you like, of Ignite, and they're taking it around the world. The UK event will be held in London, XL as usual. It's a horrible place to get to, isn't it? But that's going to be held on February the 26th and 27th next year. I had a look at it earlier today, and it seems it's sold out already because I tried to register and got put on the waiting list. So again, sort of your mileage may vary, and some of you may even be registered for it already. But if you are going and you are registered and you get in there, fantastic. We are sponsoring the event as a global sponsor. So you'll see us in the hub, which is otherwise known as the expo area. We'll have a booth presence in there. We'll also have a short speaking slot as well in one of the breakouts. So by all means, come along and see us and see what we've got to say. Obviously, 15 minutes, we can't say a whole lot, but hopefully you'll come along. But the main thing is really to come along and see Dome9, come and see CloudGuard IaaS and CloudGuard SaaS. Get a much better pictorial view and have proper conversations about kind of what matters to you and what matters to your customers as well. But as far as I'm concerned, one of the biggest things is actually to come and meet the team and meet face to face, because I know I've met a few of you guys, but plenty that I haven't. So if you can make it over February the 26th and 27th, that would be brilliant. So hopefully see you there. So to finish off, our 80/20 management is available in Azure and AWS. Gateways to follow, hopefully, in the next few weeks. Ignite the Tour, we just mentioned. Ignite's greatest hits. Hopefully, we can see you along there in February. And then, obviously, we had a quick run through of Dome9 as well, a quick car wash. If you're interested in diving deeper and finding a bit more about it, use cases and sort of customer requirements and things like that, POCs, whatever, please speak to your account manager and SE. So with that, I think that's pretty much everything I have for November. We've got about 2 minutes left. There's nothing in the chat, so I'm just going to give it 20 seconds just to see if anything appears. If it doesn't, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It feels horrible saying that in November, but it is December tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah, no December webinar. But please join us again in January, where we'll again go through what's new with Checkpoint in the cloud, new releases, probably some more Dome9 stuff as well. And obviously, if there's anything else specifically that you want to look at in the meantime, please feel free to send us an email, send us a tweet, whatever, send us a LinkedIn message, send us a text, however you want to do it, carrier pigeon. If there's any particular topic you want to look at in January, feel free to mention it, and we'll see what we can do. But obviously, within the bounds of the half-hour slot. So thank you very much. Again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I will see you all in January. Thank you.